Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah.
Week 2 in Rhode Island saw the Halfway Crooks take the court for the first time, and they did not disappoint. Definitely the best game from Week 2. We're going to start there. We'll get to all the Week 2 action from Rhode Island. We have Trent, Aidan, and Cade standing by. Everybody in uniform today for those watching on the YouTube. Points of emphasis, guys, from Week 1 to Week 2. That's what it's called. We're cracking the whip. The commission's cracking the whip. But the commission's team, the Halfway Crooks, a 2-point win. I'm going to start, and we're going to get to everybody on this game because a 2-point win over the Gym Rats. And it was a dramatic finish with some familiar faces shining through. So you can definitely get Cade and Aidan's opinion. They'll kind of have some history on that. We're going to start with Trent in a second because he hasn't seen a lot of these players before, so it's always nice to get that perspective. But the Gym Rats, up by 11 at halftime, up by 13 with 9 to go in the third. And the lead was erased before we even started the fourth quarter. A tied game going into the fourth, so Charles Correa started hitting some shots, some names that we're going to hear a lot about, Terrence Gallo getting out in transition, and it started kind of to come together a little bit. It took half a game for a lot of the new players and new pieces on the Halfway Crooks to kind of figure some stuff out. Just to talk about the last 2 minutes here, it was the Gym Rats by 3 with 2 to go, and I kind of like breaking down the games and giving people who didn't see it some context, but go check it out. You can watch the full game on our YouTube page. Gym Rats by 3. The Crooks actually missed a shot. It was an offensive rebound by Zecco Burgess, and he did a little flip floater to cut it to 1. So that's how kind of close it was for the Gym Rats to getting the ball up by 3 inside of 2 minutes when you really, really like your chances. Lemoyne on the other end then blocks Brandon Whitman, so a huge defensive play. Lemoyne missed a layup. The Gym Rats player, and I should actually get his name. Give me 1 second because he was... definitely had a great performance. Cam Grilly, 18 points. Didn't lead the team, but Cam Grilly was balling and had some huge shots. He missed a layup to put him back up by 3. Then both teams missed some threes, and the Crooks actually had to foul with 30 seconds left with the Gym Rats up 1. Brandon Whitman split some free throws, and then it was a vintage Jared Hansen and 1. I would bet my life he was going to make the free throw. I didn't even have to watch. He did. Puts the Crooks up 1. They get a steal. They split the free throws, and it's a missed 3 by Cam Grilly. And that's it. So in the blink of an eye, 15 seconds left, Jared gets the and 1. And then right after that, the Gym Rats didn't have any timeouts, and the game was over. And we're like, it's over. So Trent, that last 2 minutes, kind of focusing there. What impressed you? What stands out? I mean, your first impressions of the Halfway Crooks.
First thing first, that's a hell of a way to start the season. Like I said, they didn't play week 1. They hopped into week 2, started the season 1-0. But I want to say the team shot 6 for 29 from the three-point line. And you're probably like, well, that's not the greatest. But when they needed the most, Charles Correa, you got Nick Lamone, I believe that's his last name, was stepping up dramatically. I mean, they hit some big shots, cut down the lead. They played tremendous defense at the end. They got actually Nick Lamone's the one that got the steal, and then that's when they had to foul him and go to the free throw line and pretty much dagger the game. What I will say about the Halfway Crooks, I think they're a good team. I think chemistry is going to continue to keep building, but 2 players need to step up. That's going to be Joey and Felicia. I cannot say his last name. I'm sorry. But he was the big man on. And they shot 0 for 13 from the field and 0 for 10 from the three-point line. So we're definitely going to need that to improve, to definitely compete against these other teams in the league. But either way, a great way to start the season. A tough game, especially going against their big man. Number 12, his name is I want to make sure I say his name properly and give him a big shout-out because he was absolutely going crazy. And he had Joey upset a little bit because it looked like your big man was getting in foul trouble. Aidan was going crazy, getting a lot of offensive rebounds, a lot of putback dunks, and it kept him in the game for a while. But for your big man, he stayed poised, came off the bench. I believe he had 4 fouls, and I don't want to say his name wrong, but I believe it was the John. Was it John? I believe it was. Had 4 fouls that was going back and forth. But either way, you got the W. And way to start the season.
Yeah, so Bryant is who you're talking about as your standout player, Brian Feliciano. The names are flipped on the box score, but it's all good. Yeah, some names to learn, Trent, for sure. You're gonna,
Definitely.
we're gonna talk a lot about the halfway crooks. Aidan, you were there. Some familiar faces that you've seen. Just what about this game and even the gym rats? We can get to them in a second, and I'll do some stats in a second. But what about this one? I mean, vintage plays down the stretch. But even talk about to that experience, right? And so the gym rats, it's their second season. Some players have been here before, not in a lot of close games. I mean, using both of their timeouts in the third quarter. I said it to Brandon after, like, you just can't do it, right? I'm on the sideline to my team. Don't anybody take a freaking timeout in the third quarter, right? Because we're going to need it. And that's kind of how valuable those are. But even just in those moments, like Nick Lemoyne, not driving in and kicking it back to Jared for the and one. So Aidan, yeah, talk about the finish to this one.
So, like you said and Trent said, it's a crazy finish throughout. And Jared and Nick have been there before. They've played these close games. And like Trent said, even if they're shooting, they're 0 for 7 or 0 for 9, you're going to make those clutch shots, and you want those players on your team. Now, even looking at the Gym Rats, too, like you said, only 3 of them scored. It's a relatively new team. You have their big 3 of Aidan, Cam, and Brandon, which I think are going to be your main scorers. Aidan at 22, Cam at 18, Brandon at 18, respectively, as well. But it's more or less just passing the ball. They only had 3 assists the whole night. So they played very well. Like, had the lead, obviously had the foul. They're in crunch time, they're great. The 2 games they've played have been very good. Week 1, barely lost week 2, but it's just the experience and just having a bunch of players that know how to play the game. And like you said, Jared, he's been in the league since the beginning. He's always worth 1 to 2 buckets, and always, like you said, he's always worth an and one. So it's just getting the ball to your key players and players will make the correct plays down the stretch.
The Gym Rats losing by a combined 4 points through 2 weeks. So, that's, you talk about that experience, right? That's how you get it, by being in those situations and then finding a way to be on the right side of those close games. And it's the rules are a little different. It definitely takes some getting used to, and they'll I'm sure be hitting their stride, as we get towards the end of the season in the playoffs, and a lot of these teams will be. But to Trent's point about the shooting too, I mean, 6 of 29 is not going to work, and that's kind of what you saw in the first half, right? The Crooks may have made 1-3 in the first half. And it took that kind of third quarter. So, yeah, they're going to need some more shots to fall, and that goes for a lot of teams. But Cade, playing catch-up a little bit. But listen, this is your chance, Cade. The halfway crooks, one of your favorite teams. You have a secret jersey in the closet. I get it. It's all good, a replica. But yeah, But what about this game? And we won't spend as much time on every game, but this one being a 2-point game, deserves the time, Cade.
Yeah, I think with this game, it's just the experience. All these guys, they know what they're doing. They've been here before. They've been in this situation. Jared, I've been on the opposite end of him scoring on me and me fouling him. So it's if it's a close game, I'm picking the halfway crooks. I feel like they got the most experience in the league besides some players here and there on Lob City. But yeah, I think Terrence is a great addition to this team. He is a great addition to any team. I love Terrence, and he just makes the game fun to watch. Enough said there.
So the halfway crooks 1-0. The Gym Rats fall to 0-2. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good spot to leave it. We'll talk quickly. The halfway crooks do take on Lob City next week, and that's kind of the next game I want to get to. A 4-man, well, halfway through the first quarter, their 4th man showed up, and this was uncharacteristic of Lob City. Only 61 points, but they do get the win. 61-48, they take down the Cold Hearts. No Justin Bianchi there for the Cold Hearts, their captain. And as I mentioned, only 4 players for Lob City. No Noah West, most notably, felt, by the person doing the highlights, me. But Lob City, that's the type of game that Lob City can also win, right? And so we'll kind of go back to Trent here. Your second time seeing Lob City, seeing the Cold Hearts again. Victor Cashew Jr. was hitting a ton of threes, which is like a throwback to 2018, 2019 dub. And he's playing the air guitar going down the court like he wasn't last night because he was holding his leg the entire time with his hamstring bothering him. But, he can hit those shots and really stepped up for them, leading the way with 22 points and 9 rebounds. 5 of 19 from 3, I think just they're getting old and they would admit that. And so, the shots kind of weren't just falling for them. They still won the rebounding battle 37-21, which is huge. And Steven Soulier made his debut. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he was there in week 1, 20 points and 4 threes for him. So, Trent, Lob City, you kind of saw one version of Lob City in week 1. You saw this version of Lob City in week 2. They always do this. They're able to kind of play against and play any style of game. But what did they do in your eyes in this one to improve to 2-0?
One thing I noticed was they were very confident. It didn't matter if they had 3 people or 4 people. They said, we're going to still win this game. And I was on the sideline. I was hearing them talk before the game even started. And I was watching Cold Arts week 1. And so I thought it was going to be a good game. But what I will say, like you said earlier, there was a 3-on-4 for a little bit, and then they got one of their guards to come in, and it made it 4-on-4, and they dominated. Defensively, it was awesome. One thing I did notice, the Cold Hearts, his name is Thomas, he went off week 1 against the Muffin Tops, and he was only held to 4 points this week. And so I think that was one of the big differences. And also when I talk about the defense, they never allowed a 15-point quarter. It stopped at 14. So with 4 people, 10-minute quarters, no subs, you get timeouts, 2 timeouts per half. They didn't look like they were gassed at all. And you brought it up. He was dealing with a hamstring injury, but he still played through it. He still hit some big shots. And I also heard him saying he was like 49 points away for 1,000 points. So not too sure how true it is, but he definitely is a baller. And to come out with a victory 4-on 8 is pretty incredible to start the season 2-0. So yeah,
42 points away for Victor Cashew Jr. to join the 1,000-point club, which has been a cool milestone that a dozen or so players, maybe closer to 15 players, have reached now. So Thomas DeAndrea, who you're talking about, still had 13 rebounds, but wasn't as effective offensively in a game where they needed some inside scoring. And he was actually on the Gym Rats last winter with Brandon Whitman. And so we've seen him have big games and hit some outside shots, kind of control the paint, and it just wasn't there for him tonight. The player who showed up for the Lob City late that I want to talk about before I go to Aidan on this one, Almar Sabat, and you guys got to see a little bit of what he can do. So he is one of my favorite players to watch, and I obviously like watching all of these games. But shout out to him because he doesn't get a lot of shine, and he doesn't really want it. Even on last season's team, he's like cool playing whatever role they need. So a lot of times it's defense. And we saw a big block by him, and he's always hustling on that end, and then is always like, here you go. Here you go, Noah. Here you go, Joe Secatore last season. Here, Cody, pop it. And he's always that type of guy. But you kind of saw when there's only 4 guys, you're going to see those 4 guys have to play more, right? And so 15 points, 11 rebounds for him. Always in the way, always playing defense. And so shout out to him. He deserves it almost every week, but a lot of times it doesn't show up in the box score. And so it's kind of those types of players we like to keep an eye on. Aidan, you don't have to go too in-depth, but just Lob City, big picture. I mean, we knew that they still had this in them. Obviously not the ideal way for them to play, but what about their Week 2 performance stands out to you?
I think, like you said, Lob City's been a constant in this league since the beginning. This was one of their classic games. Like, no matter what, Cold Hearts are a lot of younger guys, and they want to push the pace. Lob City had 3 people for the first quarter, then they had 4. And they made the Cold Hearts play to the pace of what they wanted. Victor was taking his time, getting his shots. Josh was running around, getting rebound. Cody was running all over the court, doing behind-the-back lays, everything, because Cody does. And then Almar Sabat, he is so explosive. Like, as soon as he picks up the ball, takes 2 dribbles, and he's already 2 feet in the air. But big picture, it's just, they can get these wins, the tough wins with only 4 people. It's just the rest of their team showing up and being there, because the best availability is availability. So it's just kind of in there. They'll get their wins, they'll make it there, but it's just, if they all show up, that's the biggest question I feel like with Lob City.
The Cold Hearts fall to 1-1. Next week, they get ready to take on the Air Mambas, who are also now 1-1. So I'm in on that one. That's going to be a great game. And let's get to how the Air Mambas got to 1-1 with a 14-point win over the Muffin Tops. That's a transition for you guys at home, and not the sound. That's how you transition, people. Pay attention, all right? The Air Mambas, 90-76, win in week 2. Luis Ramirez led the way with 20 and 10. Mario Valerio, 17 and 9. Keon Lawrence with 16. And for the Muffin Tops, only 5 guys. Matt Dagnall had 36 and 10. Tom Williams, too, 19 and 6. Didn't even see that. So 76 points for the Muffin Tops is a good amount, possibly. Their franchise high, and so that's a step in the right direction. They do fall to 0-2, the Air Mambas, like we talked about. Let's just go to, we'll go back to Trent on this one. We'll spotlight Trent in this one, and then we'll kind of save the other guys for the other game. But Trent, the Air Mambas, so you saw them in week 1, and they lost to Lob City by 17. Math is hard, right? And so that's a Lob City team. We talked about it, a different version, a Lob City team, but probably more of the Lob City team we're going to see throughout the season. And then Aidan, the Air Mambas improved to 1-1. What did they do? And, they messed around a little bit, but what did they do in week 2?
I think, like you just said, they messed around a little bit. Watching this game from the scorers table, credit to Muffin Tops. They're just getting their guys reps, but the Air Mambas, you got to win. I don't think they should be going home with any happiness from this win because there was a lot of sloppy play and a lot of just not trying. Like, I was even sitting with Ramsey on the scorers table, and he was saying the same thing. It's like they're not playing as a team. They're playing for I, which you can't do that in basketball. It's a team sport. But like I said, they should be happy with the win, but not very happy because if you watch the game or even highlights, you can just see that they're not really trying on the defensive end. They're trying on the offensive end, but it's a lot of ISOs or a lot of quick passes, quick shots. It's going to be tough for them to continue to get wins, but like you said, there's a couple new pieces on that team. So when they're able to figure out how to play as a team and how they want to play, I think they'll be fine. But okay win for them, but just not the greatest play for the Air Mambas.
And so like we talked about, the Air Mambas 1-1, a big-time matchup next week against the Cold Hearts. I'm very interested. For the Muffin Tops in week 3, they get to take on the Gym Rats. So we'll see. That's how we kick off week 3 in Rhode Island. Our last matchup, last but not least, it was the Washed Up Boys. Probably needing the second half, I think, is fair to kind of fully pull away a little bit from the RI Warriors. But it was the Washed Up Boys improving to 2-0. 74-57, the Washed Up Boys get the win thanks to Kashawn Harrison. So his second game, 23 points in this one. He made 2 threes. Hendel roll, walked in at some point after the game had started. Not too long, 19 points for him, and was kind of doing whatever he wanted in that second half. And Leroy Brown, again, I was yelling over there, it's going to be the Leroy show early, and then I think, Hendel showed up, and then they kind of put Leroy back on ice a little bit, only 8 points for him. But Cade, we'll kind of throw it to you. I know you haven't seen a ton of these teams, but for the Washed Up Boys, 2-0, a big win. Kevin Veter with 19 for the RI, Warriors, but just, a little bit on the Washed Up Boys and some of their stats, Cade.
As a team, it looks like they basically beat them in every stat. When you got a team shooting 62%, 100% from the free throw, they didn't miss a single one. 17 boards, they're kind of dominating every spot here. 12 steals to the RI Warriors 4. That's where they get you. They only had 3 turnovers. It was just a clean game from the Washed Up Boys, and clean games get you some clean wins.
I love it. Aidan, you've seen the Washed Up Boys twice. The RI Warriors, too. So the RI Warriors fall to 0-2 after, in week 1, losing to the defending champion Road Dogs. So 2 tough matchups for them. I think they have they're going to be frisky, especially as they kind of still, again, work on that playing together part of kind of what we talked about with the halfway crooks, right? It feels like a lot of their pieces need to mesh a little better. But the Washed Up Boys picking up right where they left off, 2-0. How'd they do it in week 2?
They just I realized from seeing them for 2 weeks is they talk the most out of any legacy team I've ever seen. Not even trash talk, but just on the court talking. I feel like I'm watching like an actual league game, which is what we are. But it's just their communication and their chemistry is kind of insane. Like there was a play down the stretch where Mo and Leroy kind of got heated a little bit. They were not bickering, but you could tell by their facial expressions. They sit down on the bench for 5 minutes, they come back, and they're fine. That's professionalism and being able to take accountability for anything that happens. But like you said, Hendel Rose strolled up late. He drops 19, shooting 72% from the field. And like Cade said, they shot 62% from the field. Now, that might not happen every game, but if you're consistent with your shots and everyone's making 3 to 4 of their shots shooting, 4 or 5 of them maybe, it's going to be good. And now for the Warriors, a good showing. They kept this game kind of close, and then they kept missing some shots down the stretch, and the Washed Up Boys took over. It's just they have to run that 1 and 2 with Kevin and Bazal Masood. If I said that wrong, I apologize. But run that 1 and 2 because they were the ones making a lot of the shots. And just the primary ball handlers. Henry, too, a veteran of the league, same thing. Always talking, being around. And it was a good game overall. The RI Warriors shouldn't be too mad about this loss. But the Washed Up Boys should be happy and look excited to continue playing in the league.
And so I know we talked about it. Washed Up Boys 2-0. They're on a bye next week. And the RI Warriors take on... They won't be taking on the Road Dogs. Wow, an error in the schedule because they're not playing that team again. All right, we'll figure out who they play. Stay tuned to the website for that one. Interesting. Wow, I messed it up. No worries. But they will be playing in Week 3, trying to get that first win for the RI Warriors. All right, through 2 weeks, let's put you back on the spot. Your favorite player, so I'll give them a second to think about this, but your favorite player to watch so far through 2 weeks. And so Aidan's thinking. So Cade, you're on the spot. Go ahead. Your favorite player so far.
Yeah, I got my pick, and it was just from 1 week alone, and that's Lob City's Noah West. Please play. We want to see those dunks, man. That you filled the highlight sheet up for the entire week. And I'm just looking forward to Lob City dominating again and a good season and more highlights from him, really.
Good choice. Hopefully we see him back on the court in Week 3. Aidan, who you got?
I'm going to go with either Brandon Whitman or from the Gym Rats or Kevin Veter from the RI Warriors because anytime they step on the floor or they have the ball, they're either going to do something exciting, they're going to score, they're going to dunk, they're going to dish it. But it's just exciting to watch these kind of smaller guards somewhat thrive in the legacy leagues because they can play downhill and they can play fast. But, yeah, Brandon Whitman and Kevin Veter, you guys are on my notice this year.
So he gave 2. He cheated. But that's fine. But Kevin Veter, I agree. And, shout out to him. Hopefully we see more of him because he has been good, even though, again, 2 tough opponents for the RI Warriors. So we hope to see more from him. Week 2 in the books, Week 3, and then a 2-week break. So we'll see how many teams can remain undefeated. Right now, 4 are. We talked about not knowing who the Road Dogs are playing, so we'll get to that in a second. But the Washed Up Boys they're on a bye, so they will be one of the teams undefeated heading into our little holiday break. And Lob City takes on the Halfway Crooks, so someone most likely, definitely will have to lose that game. We don't do ties. So there you go. We will be losing one undefeated team for sure. We'll see who it is. And we'll see you guys in Week 3 on Tuesday night, the 17th, back at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club. Aidan and Cade, good job. Trent had to run. Good job, Trent. And everybody, thanks for watching.